The essential qualities about Don Murray as a performer, but also as a person, came through in his very first film, Bus Stop. The sweetness of the character of Bo, the essential sweetness of the character, is at the core of Don Murray's being, and it comes through him in those early films.
Morning, ma'am.
Oh, what are you doing?
Push-ups, ma'am. Gotta get the kinks out of my bones.
Hey, cowboy, get up off that floor.
30.
There's a charm and a simplicity and an innocence and a genuineness that audiences couldn't help but respond to in the 50s.
The interesting thing about Don Murray is he looks like he could be a guy from the 30s or the 40s, a sort of heroic, all-American, clean-cut, reliable kind of hero. But because of his acting chops, which he really had, he could show underneath that real suffering, insecurity, anxiety, and that was a perfect comment for what was going on in the 50s.
I grew up with the man during this period. I saw it all happen. And I didn't have a clue what was going on until much, much later in life. But it's an amazing story.
Don was an interesting guy because he was a rebel with a cause. They wanted to cast him as this all-American kind of guy. He didn't want that. He knew he had many more abilities to play different roles. And I think that was probably one of the mistakes. If one says one makes a mistake, I don't think it was. I think you have to be true. You just have to be true to who you think you are. I've seen too many actors sell their soul in the years I've been in the business. And I say that Don never did that.
I know more about Don Murray than even Don Murray does.
With Don Murray, it's something else, and it's empathy that he creates for his characters, but there's also this kind of unsettled screen presence that you don't normally associate with the leading man with the matinee idol good looks. And it's the ability to convey angst and stress that really just lends unpredictability to your character.
He had begun to play the anti-hero of his era of the 60s, but play it on his own terms, creating his own version of the anti-hero. You know, the seemingly typical guy with an inner core of anxiety or some hidden problem.
This is something from a long time ago, before I even knew you. If I could only...
Tell me, Brigg, tell me.
I can't.
But instead, he lost a connection with the star system of the day, with the business who now understood him and were kind of willing to let him do that. But he made his own choices to do it his way, to be independent and to follow his own interests. And you know, not many people, given movie stardom, are really ever going to do that.
The 60s were nothing but trouble for Don Murray. If Don Murray had been willing to dirty himself up more, with some long hair, maybe a beard, he could have won people over. But he hung back in that early 60s mode, and it cost him.
I think the disappearances and reappearances in my dad's career have kind of created a kind of phantom star, is what he became. And nobody really knows exactly what those gaps were and why those gaps in his career happened. But when it comes down to it, I believe that those gaps are probably one of the more interesting aspects of his entire life.